surrounded by darkness, a young boy stands amidst the void. All around him, souls cry out to him, calling him their hero and begging him to save them. But the weight of their pleas is too much for the boy to bear, and he runs to his mother for comfort. She pushes him away, telling him to be strong and die like a hero. Suddenly, Kim Sung awakens from his dream. He finds himself surrounded by powerful monsters and realizes that he must continue to fight in this god-forsaken world. After all, he holds the title of the humanity's hero, so with courage he leaps into battle, determined to defeat his foes. And despite the odds against him, he manages to emerge victorious. But then, a terrifying boss monster appears before him. The creature recognizes Kim Sung's strength and it wants to consume him. Kim Sung, weakened from his earlier battles, is unable to defend himself and is defeated with just 2 blows. And lying there he dies with regret that he could not protect anyone. A few seconds pass and he opens his eyes. He finds himself in like a different time. He is currently getting bullied by his classmates, and reacting reflexively. He defends himself and accidentally hits one of the kids too hard. When the police arrive, the bullies scatter and Kim Sung is left to ponder his recent brush with death. As Kim Sung stands before the police, he can hardly pay attention to their stern words. His mind is preoccupied with the realization that he has been sent back in time, to the year 2022, 20 years before his own time. What's more, this face is not even his own. He has gone back in time and has taken over someone else's body. Kim Sung has no time to waste dwelling on these bizarre circumstances, because he knows what is coming. The world will eventually plunge into chaos and destruction. Monsters will swarm out from the dungeon, unleashing destruction in a phenomenon known as the outbreak. The only hope for humanity lies in the emergence of awakened superhumans, called awakeners, who possess the power to combat these monsters. In his previous life, Kim Sung was one of those awakeners. In fact, he was the strongest one of them all. And before his death, he was the last human fighting in a world overrun by monsters. Suddenly, a kind woman appears before him. She introduces herself as his mother, as in the mother of the person whose body Kim Sung has taken over. She calls him So-Hyun, so apparently in this new life, Kim Sung is now known as So-Hyun. Later, when they walk home together, So-Hyun's mother expresses her concern about the bullying he has been facing. But before they can reach their destination, 2 wolf-like monsters leap out at them, hungry for blood. So-Hyun tries to fight them off with an umbrella, but his attacks are just too weak to do any damage. So eventually, one of the wolves pins him down, ready to strike. But just as all seems lost, So-Hyun's mother steps in, shielding him from the attack and saving his life. So-Hyun rushed to her side, his savior and newfound mother. Seeing her injured like this only fueled his rage, and the monsters that dared to attack them earlier quickly fled from his bloodthirsty aura. Carrying the wounded woman on his back, So-Hyun made his way back home, thoughts racing in his mind about his new body being considerably weaker compared to his previous one. At that moment, a blue portal opens up before him, stating Tower of Trials user certified, So-Hyun. With a sense of relief, he realized that even if his new body is weak, he is still an awakener. So without hesitation, he steps into the portal, leading him to the Tower of Trials, also known as the Abyss. It is a dangerous place, filled with challenges. Each floor has a trial, and clearing it will give you different rewards in the form of strength, items, and points. From his previous life, So-Hyun is well aware that simply progressing through the floors is not enough. You see, each floor gives an option to choose the difficulty level from 1 to 10, with harder levels offering greater rewards. In his previous life as Kim Sung, our main character was an unparalleled talent who conquered every floor at a difficulty level of 8. But even that wasn't enough to save humanity from destruction. So, this time around, So-Hyun sets his sights on clearing trials with the max difficulty level of 10. And in a moment, he goes through the first trial using his trusty sword as his weapon. Moving further, a man is cornered by 2 ferocious werewolves, ready to pounce and kill him. But just in the nick of time, So-Hyun arrives on the scene and unleashes his newfound power, absolutely decimating the wolves that overpowered him earlier. The stark difference in his strength was evident, a testament to the progress he had made in the Tower of Trials. Later, we see a news anchor talking about the increase in the number of dungeons popping up. Although the economy of this world is booming thanks to a valuable mineral called ether found in dungeons. Ether is used as an effective modern fuel. The world has become quite reliant on it, but the concerns over the dangers posed by these dungeons remain. Dungeons are different from the Tower of Trials, where the Tower of Trials is only for awakeners, and it is classified by floor number and difficulty level. The dungeons appear randomly around the world, and they are classified based on danger levels. What's more, sometimes even in the current time, the outbreaks are occurring. Outbreak is just a phenomenon when the monsters escape from the dungeons into the human world. These outbreaks are not yet a major concern in 2022. But nobody has any idea about how these seemingly minor outbreaks will escalate exponentially in the years to come. But Sohyan knows better. He knows that these outbreaks will grow in strength and eventually bring about the end of the world by 2028, with major ones starting 2 years from now by 2024. The fate of humanity rests on Sohyan's shoulders, and he is determined to use his second chance at life to prevent the impending catastrophe. Later, Sohyan enters the second floor of the tower, which is quite different from what we may expect. Instead of a dark and ominous setting, Floor 2 is a bright and bustling city full of shops and stalls selling all sorts of items and equipment. As Sohyan walks around, he notices that all players are shocked to see the rankings. Sohyan is ranked number 1 on the Floor 1 leaderboard, beating second place by double the points. He can sense their jealousy and admiration, but he doesn't let it get to his head. Sohyan enters a shop and is greeted by the shop owner, Vil. She immediately assumes he is a beginner and tries to trick him into buying overpriced items. However, being a veteran awakener, Sohyan sees right through her scheme and asks for the exact items he wants. Vil can't imagine a starter being able to afford these items, but she is even more shocked when Sohyan quickly pays for them without hesitation. Apart from the necessary items, a standard skill called Leap, and medication, Sohyan also buys a ultra-rare growth type skill called Transformation, which can evolve and mimic the skills of boss monsters. He plans to use it with the mana catalyst he obtained from clearing the first floor. He is just thinking about using it, when out of nowhere, a red-haired guy approaches him. And Sohyan instantly recognizes this guy from his previous life. His name is Hakjun, the guy who will massacre his own guild in the future. Sohyan's heart races with anticipation, wondering what Hakjun wants from him. Hakjun praises Sohyan for his excellent eye for equipment, but Sohyan remains wary of him. Surprisingly, in this new life, Hakjun seems pretty harmless, but Sohyan still remembers him as the guy who betrayed his own people. Hakjun suggested that they join forces, but Sohyan politely declines, preferring to work alone. Later, Sohyan enters the trial of the second floor with the highest difficulty level. The environment transforms into a dense forest, and he is given the treasure necklace of the Charles clan by the system. While these clan members, angry at the theft of their treasure, will find and attack Sohyan. So to pass this trial, his only objective is to survive and escape the forest however he can with the necklace. Although Sohyan does the opposite. Instead of escaping like he is told, Sohyan decides to take on all of them at once, hunting them for points. After defeating most of the monsters, eventually the boss of the Charles clan appears, and Sohyan quickly defeats him too with ease. As a reward for clearing the second floor, he receives the Charles clan treasure, which has the ability to heal its user 5 times completely. Sohyan's transformation skill also evolves, having absorbed the Berserker skill from the boss. This Berserker skill allows Sohyan to convert the damage he receives into attack power. Upon returning home, Sohyan is surprised to see that his mother has already prepared the dinner, despite her being injured. Sohyan is really thankful for her love, and even though she is not his real mom, he vows to always protect her. After dinner, he logs into an online forum for awakeners, where everyone is talking about a guy named Sohyan who has made an impossible-looking record of 2230 points. People have mixed reactions, but they are sure of one thing: the guilds would be doing everything to find him. At the Ares Guild HQ, Hakjun gets questioned by his guild leader about Sohyan. He thinks since Hakjun and Sohyan awakened at the same time, they might have crossed paths. But Hakjun has no idea who is Sohyan, since the tower is a big place. The guild leader then asks him about his progress with Floor 3, since he needs to work hard against this strong competitor that has emerged. Hakjun says he is having trouble finding party members due to his choice of level 8 difficulty, which is considered insanely high, although he says he would happily go alone if he doesn't find anyone. Hakjun later wonders who is this Sohyan. He thinks, is it the guy I met on Floor 2? No way, he can't be him. Meanwhile, Sohyan perfectly passes the 3rd floor, then the 4th floor, and so on, up to Floor 9. It took almost a whole year to clear these floors due to his exams that came midway. Now, Sohyan is ready to face Floor 10. Floor 10 is not an ordinary trial, because in this tower the difficulty jumps drastically every 10th floor. So floors like 10, 20, 30, etc. are considered major hurdles for awakeners. But Sohyan needs to clear it on his first try because, after only a year from now, the beginning of the destruction of the world will begin, starting with the first large-scale outbreak in 2024. But this time Sohyan will be prepared. As Sohyan descends into the abyss for the 10th floor, he spots a man begging for points. Most players would ignore him, but So-Hyun recognizes him as the guardian of the floor. Without hesitation, he gifts the man a generous sum of 5,000 points. In exchange, the reluctant guardian shares a warning with So-Hyun: be wary of the village chief. Thus begins So-Hyun's journey through the 10th floor's level 10 difficulty. Upon spawning near a village, he witnesses a young girl in peril. A giant lizard monster approaches her as she is about to eat some berries atop a tree. So-Hyun springs into action, saving the girl from certain death and slaying the beast. Despite his heroism, the villagers are suspicious of So-Hyun's intentions and refuse to thank him. Instead, they accuse him of having ulterior motives and slam the door in his face. He is shocked by their ungratefulness, but So-Hyun's objective here is to save the village and survive the perils of this floor. As he examines the village, he is struck by the eerie realism of the NPCs. The atmosphere is tense and filled with fear, reminding So-Hyun of the time near the end of the world. He despises how real it all feels and sits by a tree, lost in thought. Suddenly, the little girl from before appears and throws some food his way, thanking him for saving her. Touched by her gratitude, So-Hyun pulls out some delicacies from his pouch and shares them with her, her eyes lighting up as she munches on them. So-Hyun learns from the girl that their survival is largely due to the village chief's leadership. The girl reveals that she was collecting berries to help with the food shortage, and when So-Hyun expresses concern about the monsters outside the village walls, she assures him that the monsters cannot enter their village. But their conversation is cut short by the arrival of the village chief. The chief politely greets So-Hyun but reprimands him for distributing food without permission, emphasizing that the villagers are wary of outsiders. However, So-Hyun sees an opportunity and proposes a trade, his plentiful food in exchange for a place to stay. The chief, with a cunning smile, accepts the offer. Later, So-Hyun witnesses a heretic preaching crazy beliefs and is reminded of the end times. His unease deepens as the heretic sends a man down a ditch as a sacrifice. To So-Hyun's horror, the villagers see this as a necessary measure for survival and are content with sacrificing one person every 3 days. They even look at So-Hyun as their potential next offering. In a secret plot, the village chief instructs his assistant to slip a sleeping drug into So-Hyun's meal. It turns out that a massive man-eating snake had emerged in the area some time ago. So apparently, in a bid to save the village from the daily monster attacks, the chief had made a pact with the snake, who now lives underground, protecting them in exchange of food. While the rest of the villagers believe that they are sacrificing people to appease a god who protects them, but in reality they are just snake feed. 3 days later, the villagers, having drugged So-Hyun, drag him to the snake as a new sacrifice. The giant creature immediately pounces on him, but after a while when the village chief arrives to check on the situation, he is completely astonished by what he sees. This badass named So-Hyun has managed to slay the beast. Seeing the shock on Chief's face, So-Hyun ridicules him, asking if he wanted the monster to continue devouring people. In response, the village chief begins to panic, insisting that it was all for the sake of the village's well-being. He explains that if the snake doesn't mark its territory, smaller monsters will attack. So-Hyun sees through his hypocrisy and calls him out on it. In reality, the snake only marks its territory where it nests, and the only way to keep it nesting is to continue feeding it. And since the chief had been providing food for the snake had no reason to view him as prey. So, in reality, the chief was happy to sacrifice others for his own comfort and security. Leaving the village chief behind, So-Hyun reveals the truth to the villagers and they become furious with the chief. However, their concern shifts to the problem of dealing with other monsters surrounding them, that were only afraid to attack because of the snake. Now what to do without the snake? So-Hyun offers a solution by showing them the snake's eggs, indicating that they can continue feeding these snakes since the snake never eats the hands that feeds it. But this time they feed them by meat of other smaller monsters hunted by the villagers, instead of sacrificing human lives. Some of the villagers are hesitant, claiming they are just farmers and don't know how to fight and hunt monsters. But So-Hyun silences them by saying that if they are not willing to fight, they will have to continue sacrificing innocent lives. He is no longer the weak hero of the past who is shaped by the will of others, a weak hero that makes everyone depend on him. This time around, he offers to teach them how to hunt and protect themselves, and after some silence, surprisingly with no one heeding his call, a little girl volunteers. This act of bravery inspires others to step forward, including the chief's assistant. With the help of the volunteers, the trial's objective is now 60% complete. Meanwhile, the chief plots his revenge against So-Hyun by seeking out another powerful-looking monster underground. After some time, the training of the villagers progresses smoothly, but the quest completion remains at a standstill at 90%. Unexpectedly, the village chief reappears, having allied himself with a new monster. This creature is the only predator capable of hunting even the giant snake itself, the apex predator known as the divine bird of blue fire. The chief arrogantly assumes that the bird will follow his commands, since he raised it from birth. However, the divine bird responds to his orders with a deadly blast of blue fire, instantly vaporizing him. The monster then sets its sights on the village. Sohyan attempts to catch the divine bird of blue fire, but its lightning-fast movements made it impossible for him to get a hold of it. The bird then retaliated, striking Sohyan and demonstrating its immense power. Sohyan is sent plummeting toward the ground, but he stabilizes himself and pulls out a rope. And just as the bird makes its way towards the village, Sohyan spots an opportunity and throws the rope, which wraps around the bird's beak. After tugging the rope and closing the distance, Sohyan activates his transformation skill, hoping to mimic the bird's movements and gain an upper hand. However, his attempt fails, and the bird continues its attack. But Sohyan refuses to give up, even when all seems lost. Remembering his duty to protect the people and save the world, Sohyan grabs his sword with unyielding determination. The bird attacks with fire, and despite being burned alive by the blue flames, Sohyan activates the Charles clan treasure to heal himself as he is being burned. He fights through the pain and unleashes a final attack on the bird, causing them both to come crashing down to the ground. But when Sohyan wakes up, he finds himself surrounded by grateful villagers. They thank him from the bottom of their hearts for being their savior in the truest sense of the word, who pulled them out of a hopeless situation. Now, having cleared this floor perfectly, Sohyan decides to leave quietly. However, before he departs, the little girl comes to see him off, bidding him farewell, and finally telling her name, Melly, the girl who found a hero. Hakjun is traveling with his guild leader to obtain an official rank from the government. Since Hakjun has already cleared floor 15 in level 8 difficulty, guild leader expects a solid B rank. Guild leader mentions that Sohyan recently conquered floor 10. It's possible that Sohyan is also present for the rank assessment. And if he is there, the guild leader orders Hakjun to recruit Sohyan at any cost. He says, "If you manage that, who knows, I will even grant you your freedom in return." By a stroke of luck, Sohyan arrives shortly after Hakjun at the Awakened Certification Authority, the government facility where the exam takes place. Inside the exam room, a commotion erupts when an examinee vehemently rejects his D rank assignment, claiming he deserves a higher rank. Hakjun swiftly controls him and exposes him as a cheater, who had been using an artifact to fraudulently boost his rank. When he resists, Hakjun is about to teach him a lesson, but security promptly removes the cheater from the premises. Sohyan approaches Hakjun, and the two strike up a friendly conversation. Later, when Sohyan mentions the guild, Hakjun's demeanor instantly turns dark for a second. But Hakjun switches back to his cheery self when his name is called for the exam. After the test, he is assigned the respectable rank of B, earning admiration from those around him, but he expected more. After that, the name Sohyan is called out, and everyone is surprised, including Hakjun, who heard Sohyan's name for the first time. They all realize that the renowned Sohyan from the points leaderboard is standing before them. The room buzzes with excitement. The instructor instructs Sohyan to infuse his mana into the measuring tool. As the Sohyan proceeds, the whole room briefly feels the immense pressure of Sohyan's mana. However, the pressure swiftly dissipates, and Sohyan is given a C rank, leaving everyone disappointed. The real Sohyan would have a higher rank, and since Sohyan is a common name, they assume this Sohyan must be someone else with the same name. Hakjun also doesn't believe. He knows that only world-class awakeners can manipulate mana to fake the test, and no matter how much of a genius Sohyan is, he can't be a world-class awakener with only conquering the 10th floor. Meanwhile, Sohyan is ashamed of losing control of his mana, even if it was just for a second. He didn't realize how much his power has grown. Thanks to the rewards from clearing floor 10, he has improved stats and a new growth-type skill called Divine Flames from defeating the bird. Additionally, Sohyan stumbled upon an expensive and mysterious egg from a special items shop. He only bought it because he remembered an awakener in his past life, who had a dragon as a familiar. Later, Hakjun approaches Sohyan to discuss something, but their conversation is interrupted by the previous cheater. Before Hakjun can handle the situation, guild leader Dongyung arrives and casually deals with the troublemaker with assassin-like powers. Guild leader Dongyung introduces himself and expresses curiosity about Hakjun's new friend. Despite Hak-jun signaling So-hyun not to reveal his name, So-hyun disregards the warning and shares his identity. Hak-jun attempts to explain the misunderstanding, but Dong-young dismisses him. But upon confirming So-hyun's C rank on his identification, Dong-young quickly loses interest. He says a C rank like him can apply to the guild, but only after proper tests. So-hyun firmly states, even if he was the real So-hyun, he would never join a guild whose leader casually harms the weak. Dong-young claims it was just self-defense, but So-hyun believes that punishment was excessive for a D rank. Amid their conversation, Dong-young chuckles and shares an unwritten rule of this world. Interfering in Awakener's fights, even if it leads to death, is not a good idea. The powerful rule the world, and a guild with a formidable leader can act as they please. With that, Dong-young departs, and So-hyun hands Hak-jun his contact information, telling Hak-jun to call him for help if ever the need arises. After a background check, turns out Dong-young used to be a notorious gangster involved in extortion, kidnapping, smuggling, and all sorts of crimes before his awakening. This revelation makes So-hyun reconsider his previous judgment of Hak-jun. Maybe Hak-jun was justified in wiping out his entire guild in his previous life. But the question remains, what pushed Hak-jun to do that? Coming back, So-hyun takes a brief moment to catch his breath and relax. However, the thought of the future immediately brings him back to reality, and he gets back to work. Having obtained an official rank, So-hyun can apply for dungeon raids. He had always planned to apply for the upcoming Guangzhou dungeon raid, because of something dark that occurred regarding this in his previous life. But with this second chance, So-hyun is determined to make things right. Dungeons are identified by the color of their portals. They come in all 7 colors of the rainbow, with each color indicating the level of difficulty, red being the easiest and violet being the most dangerous. This Guangzhou dungeon that So-hyun has selected is an orange dungeon, which is supposed to be easy. Upon arriving at the entrance, So-hyun is greeted by the raid leader, Johu. Another member named Minseok excitedly asks if he is the famous So-hyun, but Johu clarifies that he is just a C-rank explorer with the same name. A blonde girl named Yumi tries to act like a third-rate villain by downplaying So-hyun because of his C rank. But So-hyun fires back, reminding Yumi that she is also a C rank, so her being cocky doesn't make sense. Their banter escalates, prompting assistant leader Baron to intervene and call for calm. Meanwhile, the cheerful healer Yeon tries to ease the tension with her positive vibes, while the last member, a mysterious individual who keeps his identity hidden, avoids interaction. Since he is so sus, So-hyun keeps a close eye on him, because on January 1st, 2024, in So-hyun's previous life, this team of 6 Awakeners excluding So-hyun embarked on the Guangzhou dungeon raid. However, things took a disastrous turn, as the entire team was wiped out with no survivors found. That's why So-hyun chose this dungeon. If he didn't, all 6 of these people are about to meet their maker. But what's bizarre about the incident was that only 5 bodies were recovered instead of 6. It's evident that an assassination took place, with the real culprit hiding among the group. So, now that So-hyun has become the 7th member to join, it's all up to So-hyun to identify and incapacitate the traitor among them before the traitor kills them all. What do we have here? Looks like So-hyun is dealing with a classic Among Us situation, where So-hyun needs to catch the imposter. As the team enters the dungeon, they are unaware that the color of the portal behind them is changed from orange to yellow. Inside, Johu briefs them that there won't be any powerful monsters, but to their surprise, a towering cyclops stands before them. The cyclops launches an attack, but everyone narrowly evades it. So-hyun is shocked. Cyclops only appear in higher-level dungeons from yellow onwards. It dawns on him that this dungeon has been upgraded. It's a growth-type dungeon. Just like growth-type skills, there are growth-type dungeons. Realizing this, the team finds themselves in distress. Suddenly, the cyclops strikes again, but Johu, being the only B-rank Awakener, steps forward to block the attack. However, a powerful knee strike sends Johu crashing into a nearby wall. With Johu incapacitated, the Cyclops prepares to deliver a final blow. But So-hyun steps in, blocking the attack and swiftly evading the follow-up strike. The team is astonished by the display of So-hyun's capabilities, a mere C-rank explorer holding his own against such a formidable foe. Suskai informs them that the exit is blocked, but that's normal, because, in dungeons of yellow level and above, one must clear the dungeon first, otherwise, they can't leave. Suddenly, the ground starts rumbling, and moments later around 30 small monsters descend upon them from all sides, causing chaos within the group. Sohyan confidently declares, "I will handle the Cyclops," and activates his leap skill, swiftly leaving the scene. Although Sohyan's divine flame skill can eliminate the small monsters, he decides to save it for a future emergency. Sohyan lands on the Cyclops' hand and stabs it, exploiting its vulnerability. He knows the Cyclops' weakness lies in its eye but not the eye on its head, but the second eye on the palm, hidden in the hand which the monster uses to grip the club. With the Cyclops defeated, Sohyan is relieved to see the rest of the team holding their own against the smaller monsters. However, the Cyclops surprises everyone by grabbing Sohyan from behind. It was a trick. The second eye was actually on the Cyclops' other hand. Helplessly, the team watches as the Cyclops crushes Sohyan between its hands. But in the blink of an eye, Sohyan emerges unharmed. Fortunately, he activated his transformation skill just in time, granting him the abilities of the giant Cyclops. Since his transformation skill has leveled up, Sohyan can now even copy the enemy's powers instead of just their skills. With his newfound strength, Sohyan swiftly cuts down some of the small monsters with ease. And noticing Sohyan is distracted, the Cyclops attacks, but Sohyan dodges and launches a fierce counterattack from behind. Seeing all this, Johu is astonished at how a C rank could possess such an amazing power-up skill. But as soon as Johu focuses on the remaining monsters, Sohyan stops holding back and swiftly defeats the Cyclops, easily destroying it completely without even considering its weakness. Once the battle is over, Johu instructs everyone to take some rest. He asks Sohyan if he is alright, and even though Sohyan is perfectly fine, he acts hurt, prompting Johu to order Yun to heal him immediately. During the healing process, Yun praises Sohyan for defeating a monster that even B-rank awakeners struggle against. However, she shares some troubling news. Other members of the team are struggling, and on top of that, she has heard rumors about their leaders, Johu and Baron, who are notorious for scamming other raid members out of their rewards. Hearing this, Sohyan finally solves the mystery of the true imposter, and now he understands what's truly happening here. But more on that later. Coincidentally, Johu approaches them and expresses the need to talk with Sohyan, and Sohyan replies he also has questions of his own, and the two have a conversation in private. After their conversation, the group proceeds further into the dungeon. Baron asks Johu about their plan, to which Johu replies that the plan has been cancelled. As the group advances, they come across two massive metal gates, and together they enter inside. In the distance, two more golden gates await them. Eagerly stepping forward, Yunmi triggers a message to appear.
Dungeon system on. Welcome. The trial of the dungeon will soon begin. Please select the trail of passing. First trial, fight monsters. The door at the back will continuously summon monsters for 30 minutes. Second trial, open the door on the opposite side and run from monsters for 30 minutes. Summoned monsters will chase after all of you. You have 10 minutes to make your choice between the first or second trial.
Now, our group is left to decide between the two trials that Dungeon has presented them. It's up to them to select the trial of fighting or the trial of running. Yumi suggests second trial of running, while Minseok mentions that the first trial of fighting may offer better rewards. As they argue, Baron turns to Johu to make the decision. Johu suggests asking Sohyan since they owe their success against the Cyclops to him. The group is shocked when Sohyan chooses the first trial, which requires fighting for 30 minutes. Yumi even calls him arrogant and greedy. Sohyan explains his reasoning, highlighting that although the second trial, the running one, may appear easier, it would mean the dungeon will spawn extremely strong monsters that are impossible to defeat. A simple hiccup could easily result in demise. On the other hand, if they choose first one, the fighting trial, the monsters would be relatively weaker. They can somehow stick together in formation and endure for 30 minutes. Upon hearing Sohyan's explanation, everyone agrees to fight. They quickly form a formation, and moments later, monsters start pouring out from the gates. A lizard-type monster grabs Johu, but Sohyan swiftly cuts off its tail and defeats the creature. After some time later, Sohyan scans the surroundings and notices that everyone is holding up well. They are on the verge of passing the trial when suddenly, outside the gate, the sus guy gets impaled by spikes and becomes history. Seems like he stepped on a trap while trying to escape. To make matters worse, since the doors were opened, the system announces that the first trial is cancelled, and now they have to face the second trial in 10 minutes. They need to run. Confusion fills their minds. Why would the sus guy attempt to flee just as they were about to pass? How can they escape when the outside appears to be filled with traps? They can't stay, as the monsters of the second trial are supposed to be impossible to defeat. They might be done for good this time. However, Sohyan shocks everyone by declaring that there are no traps. If there were traps, the system would have mentioned them. The system doesn't lie. This must be someone else's trickery. Others are hesitating, but Johu orders them to move out. Running is their best chance, so they collectively began to move out. When suddenly, Sohyan drops a bombshell that he will stay behind to buy some time. What's weird is that he insists Yeon will also stay with him for some unknown reason. Yeon has no idea and insists that she wants to run with the others. However, Johu closes the door behind them, signaling Sohyan and promising others to explain later. They all run, leaving Sohyan and Yeon behind. Yeon falls to the floor and begins to cry. And in an unexpectedly calm manner, Sohyan questions why she's holding a knife if she's so distraught. Yeon has finally revealed her true face. Looks like we have finally found the imposter among them. Sohyan unsheathes his sword and slashes her collar to reveal a tattoo on Yeon's shoulder, the mark of the Dump Guild, a notorious group of despicable individuals that are truly the lowest of the low. Although the name Dump is currently unknown, in the future they become as dangerous to humans as the outbreaks themselves. So in this life, Sohyan plans to eradicate them from their very roots. Initially, Sohyan suspected the sus guy, but Yeon eliminated him first, as she was unaware of his powers. Furthermore, she also tried to sow distrust between Sohyan, Baron, and Johu, which ultimately led to Sohyan uncovering her true intentions. Yeon chuckles and praises Sohyan for seeing through her deception. She divulges that they are all doomed regardless because of the approaching monsters. However, she plans to utilize her special skill, Sneak, to escape unnoticed while the monsters deal with Sohyan. As the door opens, Yeon activates her sneak skill, but Sohyan questions whether her ability erases the scent of blood. Thinking 10 steps ahead, Sohyan had already made a minor cut earlier. Smelling the blood, the monsters swiftly dispatch her. However, the true challenge has just begun. Hundreds of powerful B rank and above monsters lock their gaze on Sohyan, who is standing alone. They charge toward him, but Sohyan leaps into action, decimating many of them with each strike. No one can get past him, as the others need to make their escape. Spotting a flying monster, Sohyan moves with astonishing speed, leaps to it, and delivers a finishing blow. But this is just the beginning. Their numbers are far too many, and it's time for Sohyan to unleash his special move. Meanwhile, Johu and the others continue their escape. In a flashback, Johu remembers his conversation with Sohyan. Remember earlier, when Sohyan and Johu went for a private conversation after the Cyclops was defeated? This is what they talked about. He asked Sohyan if he is really the famous Sohyan of the leaderboards. And when Sohyan confessed to Johu that despite being a C rank, he is the true Sohyan, Johu insisted on giving Sohyan the leadership position from now on, since he is so much stronger. But Sohyan refused, saying you are a trustworthy person, much more suited to be the leader. Additionally, Sohyan also warns Johu about a traitor in their midst. This is the reason why Johu blinded trusted Sohyan when Sohyan identified Yeon as the traitor. Concerned for Sohyan's well-being, Johu cannot shake the thought of Sohyan fighting alone to buy them time. So, he decides to turn back and aid Sohyan, unable to abandon a team member. As Johu reaches the scene, he is stunned to witness all the monsters engulfed in brilliant blue flames. When a flying monster approaches Johu, Sohyan harnesses the flames to incinerate it. Even when a pack of monsters closes in from behind, they pose no challenge for Sohyan's sword coated in blue flames. Such is the power of the leveled up Divine Flame skill. Johu remarks that, it seems Sohyan has everything under control. Him coming here is to help was essentially useless. However, Sohyan corrects him, assuring Johu that his help is needed as the real fight is just beginning. Suddenly, a yellow portal materializes before them, and a hand emerges from it. A hooded skeleton adorned with a jewel on its forehead appears, a monstrously powerful final boss emanating an overwhelming aura of mana. His appearance was the main reason why this dungeon transformed from orange to yellow, and new monsters were introduced. Johu questions what this entity is, and how a skeleton can be a dungeon boss. Before Sohyan can respond, the dungeon boss politely requests not to be referred to as a mere skeleton. Johu struggles to comprehend that a monster is capable of speaking. The boss introduces himself as Lich the Dark Priest, and demands to be called by that name. But Sohyan interjects, saying it's actually a half-Lich. However, the boss obviously claims he is the real deal. But Sohyan starts taunting it by throwing insults, half failure, half off sale Lich, and more. This angers the Lich, and he casts a spell, and all the defeated monsters around them began to rise up to fight as zombies. Sohyan acknowledges the Lich's strength and realizes that its appearance was the main reason why this dungeon transformed from orange to yellow. He only deliberately taunted the Lich, because he wanted the Lich to strike first. To ensure Johu's safety from the powerful monsters, Sohyan creates a circle of flames around Johu using his flame-coated sword. After that, Sohyan leaps directly at the Lich, or rather, the half-Lich, but in an instant the Lich vanishes, reappearing elsewhere and mocking Sohyan to catch him. Liches are generally unsuited for physical combat. They rely on their undead minions to keep enemies at bay. They also possess the ability to fast teleport when attacked. This also means that to defeat the Lich, Sohyan only needs to catch him and destroy the crystal of life on the Lich's forehead which holds the Lich's life essence. Later, Sohyan's second attack also fails. The Lich retaliates with its own attack. Sohyan blocks the attack with his sword and counters with his blue flames. But the Lich teleports away once again. The Lich laughs and mentions that its previous death magic attack will continue corroding Sohyan's sword until the sword is destroyed within 5 minutes. Fearlessly, Sohyan declares that 5 minutes is more than enough time to defeat it and he launches another assault. Their battle intensifies. Meanwhile, Johu begins to feel useless from the sidelines, even though the monsters are ignoring him. This feeling makes him step out of the circle of flames, and he attacks and defeats a monster with his sword enveloped in divine flames. Seeing Johu's passion to be stronger and observing his newfound strength, Sohyan makes a change of plans, and he swiftly moves toward Johu, cutting down any monsters in his path. The Lich believes Sohyan is attempting to flee, but Sohyan confidently states that they are just getting started. After apologizing to Johu for underestimating him, Sohyan leans in and whispers his plan to defeat the Lich into Johu's ear. The monsters launch a synchronized attack, while our newly formed duo fearlessly confronts them head-on. Sohyan engages the monsters directly, but Johu moves past them and charges straight at the Lich. As Johu nears his target, Sohyan unleashes a scorching flame attack towards the Lich. The Lich teleports away in mid-air, and at first the attack seems to be wasted. When suddenly, Johu activates his Tempest Sword. He uses his Wind Dance attack to change the direction of the fire, pointing it directly towards the Lich. And together the wind and fire attacks amplify each other and directly hit the Lich, causing major damage. But without wasting any time, Sohyan catches the falling Johu and launches him back directly at the Lich. Lich manages to counter Johu when Sohyan comes in from behind to deliver the finisher. But at that very moment Sohyan's sword breaks to pieces. Seems like the 5 minutes are up, and the sword has rotted. Seeing his attack fail, the Lich smirks, but Sohyan returns the smile, knowing what is about to unfold. Just as the Lich's confidence peaks, Johu strikes from behind, delivering the final blow that cleaves the Lich in half. This time they have finally won, and the boss is defeated. Before fading away, the Lich issues a haunting warning.
This is far from the end. Our king shall be reborn, and he will subject you to unyielding pain.
With this, the grueling Guangzhou dungeon raid is finally done, and relief washes over the tired duo, and after collecting the rewards, they hide outside the dungeon's entrance behind bushes, while the rescue services and media organizations attend to the remaining raid members. With tears in her eyes, Baron speaks during an interview, expressing her concerns that those still inside may have perished, urging for immediate aid. Recognizing Sohyan's desire to keep his true powers hidden, Johu steps forwards and volunteers to handle the media himself. But Johu has one request. He wants to return his share of the dungeon rewards to Sohyan, admitting that he feels unworthy of this. He knows that Sohyan didn't really need his help with the Lich. For him, Sohyan giving him a chance to grow in a battle is enough, and someday he plans to fight beside Sohyan and be helpful enough to deserve his fair share. After that, Johu discreetly arranges for a trusted taxi driver to secretly pick up Sohyan from such a remote location. During the journey, Sohyan marvels at Johu's dependability and unwavering character. Yet, amidst the triumph, a sense of disappointment lingers within Sohyan. Although he identified the culprit in time, he couldn't save everyone. Guys, I need Fs in the chat for the sus guy. We should be ashamed for suspecting him. He gave his life so others could identify the culprit. May his soul rest in peace. Sohyan also realizes that he could save the rest of the raid members only with Johu's corporation. He realizes that merely being the strongest and the last one standing will not save others in the world. In this life, Sohyan resolves to gather trustworthy allies to shape a better future for everyone. But before embarking on this transformative path, Sohyan recognizes his immediate need to visit a hospital. But first, he would need some money to cover the medical expenses. Elsewhere, an assistant urgently summons the department manager, informing him of a customer who wishes to sell a substantial amount of ether stones. The customer holds a C-rank status, yet possesses over 500 grams of ether stones. So Hyan patiently waits in the lobby as the manager personally comes to meet him. Manager then inspects the quality of the ether and satisfied with their quality, the cunning manager attempts to diminish So-Hyan's bargaining power by suggesting the possibility that So-Hyan got this ether illegally. A mere C-rank doesn't have this much. Unfazed by this, So-Hyan counters by revealing another crystal, leaving the manager and his associate astounded. It is a high-grade ether stone, the same as Lich's crystal of life. Although the crystal on Lich's forehead was destroyed, fortune favored So-Hyan, as he got an identical one from the reward box. So-Hyan stands up, moves towards the door, and calmly states that he is happy to leave if they doubt his credibility. Yet, moved by the rarity and value of the stones, the manager implores him to stay, determined to present a fair offer. With this negotiation tactic, So-Hyan stands outside his home, now 600 million won richer. As he enters his home, his mom cheerfully welcomes him. But So-Hyan immediately notices a bruise on his mother's face. Seeing this devastates So-Hyan, and he immediately inquires about the scar. His mother reveals that she sustained it while trying to break up a fight between customers. Filled with concern, So-Hyan insists that she quit her job without any delay. Reluctant, his mother explains that it's no big deal. More importantly, she needs to earn enough for So-Hyan's college tuition. She says this is the least she can do as his proud mother. Hearing her words, our main character's mind flashes back to the previous life, his real mother scolding him for not being good enough, urging him to strive harder. She wanted Kim Sung to be a powerful hero to make her proud. She never really cared for his own desires. Snapping back to reality, So-Hyan finally confesses to his mother that he has become an awakener and no longer wishes to attend college. To his surprise, his mother already knew. And understanding the dangers involved with being an awakener, she is worried for So-Hyan's safety. Despite her concerns, she knows So-Hyan is serious about this profession, so she encourages So-Hyan to follow his heart. This is just too wholesome. Guys, I need W's in the chat for So-Hyan's mom right now. And maybe drop a few L's in the comments for the old mom as well. So-Hyan reveals that he has earned enough for them both, urging his mother to quit her job. As he displays the astonishing sum of 600 million won in his bank account, his mother is left utterly shocked. She heads off to prepare a special dinner while So-Hyan sits with a newfound realization. Though he may not be the original So-Hyan, he is determined to improve the real So-Hyan's life and transform him into a true hero. It's his way of saying thanks to the real So-Hyan if he ever returns to his body. With this second chance, So-Hyan is resolved to protect the peace of their world. Later, So-Hyan comes to the realization that he no longer possesses a weapon since the Lich destroyed it. Elsewhere, we see a blacksmith toiling away in his shop. He is master craftsman Diho, and there is a persistent knocking on his door. He tries to ignore it first, but at last he swings open the door, only to find So-Hyan standing there, wearing a warm smile as if meeting an old friend. In a flashback we see, Holy Sword Bamo, known as the sacred sword that slays dragons, was the very blade that our main character wielded in his previous life. It was a masterpiece crafted by Master Diho himself. He used countless materials gathered by the efforts of countless awakeners to make the sword. We go even further back when our hero enters Master Diho's shop, and Diho presents the Holy Sword Bamo. Diho proclaims it as one of the greatest masterpieces of his life. However, the hero refuses to accept it, believing that Diho has used too many of his own precious materials, irreplaceable materials that Diho was saving till now. Diho responds,
I have heard that people have started calling you their hero. You are so famous that even a man like me, who never leaves his shop, has heard of you. It seems the more famous you become, the more burdened you feel. Isn't it unfair that people expect so much from you, even though they haven't done anything for you yet? You strive your hardest to meet their expectations. They say you are the only one who can save them, but just as you do things for free, people can also do favors without a price. This sword is my way of repaying you, even if only a little.
Moved by Diho's words, the hero accepts the sword. Our main character calls Diho his savior, but sadly, after a while, Diho was also killed by the monsters. He became one of the people our main character failed to protect in his previous life as Kim Sung. Now, back in the present time, So-Hyan introduces himself to Diho and requests him to forge a custom sword. However, Diho dismisses him, refusing to create weapons for a nobody. Understanding Diho's weakness, Sohyan reveals that he has prepared a special material for him. Intrigued, Diho takes a look and is astonished to find the highest grade ether stone. This ether was also part of the reward box Sohyan got for defeating the Lich. This particular grade of material has never been seen before in their world. In Sohyan's previous life, the Guangzhou dungeon was supposed to become an outbreak, and only after defending against the monsters that poured out, only then the world was supposed to find this exceptional material. Generally, ether stones possess nearly infinite uses, but their most important one is weapon crafting. Meanwhile, after seeing the amazing quality of the material, Diho agrees to take on the job of creating a sword for Sohyan, and he reaches for the contract papers. However, Sohyan stops him, saying they don't need a contract, expressing his trust and belief that Diho enjoys the process of forging a sword rather than the monetary reward. Diho chuckles at Sohyan's remark, finding him to be quite interesting. They part ways, but before leaving, Sohyan selects a temporary sword for his use. As he steps away, Sohyan enters the Tower of Trials, and his speedrun of floors begins.
You are entering the abyss. You are now challenging the 11th floor, difficulty set to level 10. You are now challenging the 12th floor, now challenging the 13th floor, challenging the 14th floor, 15th floor, 16th, 17th, and 18th.
Sohyan flawlessly clears each floor up to the 18th floor, dedicating half a year to this endeavor. Half a year later, in a hospital, we find Johu lying on a bed, injured from pushing himself too much. He tried to clear the tower at level 5 difficulty. Johu is determined to grow stronger and catch up to Sohyan. He wants to fight alongside him. Suddenly, his phone rings, and it's Sohyan on the other end. Sohyan is called to ask for 3 favors from Johu, since Johu is a pretty dependable and well-connected guy. For starters, Sohyan asks Johu to find a nicer place in which he can move in with his mother. Second, he wants all the information about the Dump Guild, anything at all. And third, he informs Johu about the first massive outbreak that will happen on the 24th of December. Tens of thousands of people will lose their lives, and it will be the greatest tragedy they have ever seen. It will start soon after a green dungeon will pop up in Anyang City, and later things would go wrong and monsters will pour out of it. Sohyan wants Johu to help with this outbreak. Johu obviously asks, how do you know all of this? To which Sohyan simply says, just trust me on this. 1.5 years have already passed since Sohyan came to the past, and he has been preparing for Anyang City outbreak from the start. Now he only has half a year to finish his preparations. Sohyan believes if he manages to clear the 20th floor and get his new sword on time, he would be ready for the upcoming outbreak. Right after that, Sohyan enters the tower to face floor 19th, wasting no time. The environment changes to that of a desert, and Sohyan is spawned high up in the air. He is free-falling directly at an animal carcass below him. The carcass is getting picked clean by thousands of monster rats. For his trial, he has been thrown headfirst into the nest of monster rats with the objective to survive. Sohyan makes a solid landing, which alerts the rats, and the rabid rats run directly at Sohyan, hungry for more food. Sohyan attacks. He dashes through their lines, cleaving through dozens of them in one go. But suddenly, a rat manages to sneak up on him. But its attack only grazes Sohyan's shoulder, and it gets dealt with in the next second. From the damage, it seems the rats have acid or poison attacks. More rats are about to reach Sohyan when he activates his Divine Flames skill, which covers the whole ground in a fire. Meanwhile, Sohyan leaps to a higher vantage point, and he keenly observes the flames. When suddenly, the rabid rats start to emerge out of them. One of them leaps forward. Sohyan kicks away the rat and realizes that no matter what he is doing, he is unable to put a dent in their numbers. Sohyan runs through them, cleaving and slashing the monsters, when his eye catches the sight of a crack in the ground. He immediately activates his flaming sword, aiming for the crack, his reasoning being, how will the rats get to him when there is no ground? Sohyan throws the sword on the crack, and to finish things off, he jumps on it to finally collapse the ground. When below the ground, he is surprised to see ancient stone carvings and statues. Looks like he has found a hidden area, which appears like an ancient tomb. Sohyan sees a rat, but it's shivering from the fear of an unknown entity. Running away, the rat activates a trap and gets destroyed. And moments later, from the dark corners of this tomb, emerges the real boss of the 19th floor. It is Sohayan's old enemy, a predatory snake, but this one is on a completely different level, featuring a more mystical, dragon-like appearance. Immediately, the snake attacks with its tail. It's fast, but Sohayan is faster. He dodges the tail and launches a counterattack with his swords. But his sword slashes have no effect. The snake's physical resistance is just too high. Quickly, Sohayan then launches a flame attack, which hits the snake directly in its face. But even magic has no effect. The snake is completely unharmed. The snake slithers directly at Sohayan and launches a barrage of powerful attacks. Its relentless onslaught is getting faster, more persistent, and even more unpredictable, coming from all directions. Sohayan really is having a hard time. Suddenly, the snake lunges at Sohayan, attempting to bite him. Acting swiftly, Sohayan narrowly evades the attack, saving himself by jamming his sword into the snake's mouth in a move reminiscent of Harry Potter. However, unlike in Harry Potter, this snake possesses a mouth that is impervious to swords, both inside and out. The snake then slams Sohayan into the wall, but Sohayan is tough enough to handle that. The fight intensifies, and the snake pounces at Sohayan once again. Sohayan seizes the opportunity and leaps into the air, executing a powerful sword smash near the snake's eyes. Utilizing the impact, he propels himself even higher and grabs hold of a sturdy vine. Using the vine to his advantage, Sohayan swiftly traverses the walls of the tomb, skillfully maneuvering to outsmart the snake. With precision, he identifies a vulnerable spot near the creature's ear and successfully pushes back the monster, causing it to crash into a wall while still airborne. As the snake attempts to reach Sohayan, it employs its tail as a means of attack. However, Sohayan manages to narrowly dodge the strike, and as he descends, he swiftly runs his flaming sword across the monster's vulnerable underbelly. Sohayan falls to the ground, and before he can recover, the snake is about to reach him. But in a 9,000 battle IQ moment, Sohayan was manipulating the snake this whole time. The snake is now tied in vines, immobilized in mid-air. Sohayan smiles and activates his special skill, which calls the Divine Flame Phoenix. Since Divine Flame was a growth-type skill, it has evolved to the point that Sohayan can call upon the Flaming Bird. Since this consumes a lot of mana, Sohayan had to immobilize the snake first. Sohayan orders the bird to attack, and surprisingly without any problems, the bird runs straight through the insanely tough snake, ending it in a single blow. And with this, floor 19 is also cleared perfectly with a 100% achievement rate. The next day, we see Joho waiting for someone at the cafe. When a red Ferrari-type sports car pulls up outside, everybody is checking out the expensive car. When Sohayan is revealed to be its owner, Joho is excited to hear Sohayan's thoughts about the car. This luxury bad boy was gifted to Sohayan by Joho after he found out that Sohayan uses public transport even as an awakener. Acknowledging the increasing attention from onlookers, Sohayan and Joho decide to enter the cafe. Engaging in casual conversation, Sohayan casually mentions that he had been eagerly awaiting the completion of a custom sword before tackling the 20th floor. Transitioning to more serious matters, they discuss the close proximity of the cafe to Anyang City, where the massive outbreak is now a mere 2 months away. Joho shares the encouraging news that he has managed to secure a meeting with the director of the agency. If they can successfully convince the director, there is a possibility of receiving assistance during the outbreak. Moving on to their next agenda, Joho remarks on the elusive nature of the Dump Guild. Despite the increasing cases of missing or deceased awakeners, he speculates that this may be a result of the heightened difficulty of new dungeons. There is no way to find out if Dump Guild is involved in these failed raids. However, Joho mentions instances of awakeners appearing dead on the streets, having succumbed to some form of poisonous powers. This immediately triggers Sohayan's memory of Dongnong's abilities, prompting him to urge Joho to continue investigating this matter. After a while, Sohayan finds himself standing outside, contemplating the overwhelming uncertainty of their situation despite Joho's dedicated efforts. Sohayan ponders what lies ahead, unsure of what the future holds. He then takes his sports car straight to Master Diho's shop. Luckily, the sword is ready, and even though the sword is nothing compared to Bamong, the sword of his previous life, it's still pretty impressive. It feels as if this sword is alive. To assess its capabilities, Sohayan hurls another sword at it, only to witness the other sword shattering upon impact. Satisfied with the outcome, he bestows the name Gram upon his new sword. He decides to reserve the name Bamong for a future weapon, as it signifies a god-slaying sword and is intended for his revenge. Expressing his gratitude to Master Diho, Sohayan bids farewell and leaves the shop, ready to face the challenges that lie ahead, starting with floor 20. Transitioning to the next scene, we can see a medieval-type setting. There is a castle at night, and it is very well lit with torches. A spearman is patrolling when someone puts a hand on his shoulder. The soldier is on edge, but he calms down after seeing the face of his commanding officer, Commander Maxman. Maxman empathizes with the soldier, saying, "I know you have been on duty for several days, but hang in there just a little longer." Turns out, it's already been half a month since their nation is in a state of war, and things are getting more difficult as there is no support. A peculiarly dressed masked man approaches them. This man is the attaché, a government official appointed by the king to oversee the castle, dispatched soon after the Odram kingdom declared war on them. Attaché asks for the report, and Maxman says the situation is grim. If worse comes to worse, they might have to abandon this castle. Hearing this, Attaché gets angry. Maxman says they are short on food and all the other essential supplies. But Attaché doesn't care. He says if you and your soldiers give up the castle, you all are better off as dead anyways. Maxman is taken aback by this callous attitude from a man who has never seen battle, questioning how someone who has never fought can treat the lives of soldiers as mere fodder. But still, Maxman can't disobey the attaché. The attaché commands Maxman to hold the castle at any cost for 1 more month, assuring Maxman that he is capable of accomplishing this task. After all, Maxman is considered as their kingdom's national hero. Maxman's anger begins to bubble, but before he can respond, a noise reverberates from outside. The castle doors have been forcefully breached by a man, and that man is none other than So-Hyan.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
A few hours ago, So-Hyan entered the abyss to start floor 20. He offers the Guardian a lot of points, like 100,000 points. The Guardian chuckles in disbelief, labeling So-Hyan as a monster, as it typically takes people years to accumulate such a vast number of points. After accepting the points, the Guardian foretells that despite challenging the floor at level 10, So-Hyan is unlikely to meet his demise. In fact, he may very well become the one who inflicts death upon others. However, if possible, the Guardian advises So-Hyan to refrain from taking lives, urging him to prioritize other solutions. Nevertheless, in every situation, So-Hyan should do whatever is necessary. After hearing these confusing pieces of advices, as So-Hyan enters the 20th trial, he is now falling back first along a tall cliff. After stabilizing himself, he approaches the edge of the cliff, where he can see a castle. The system's voice appears and it says,
20th floor trial will now begin. The castle of Kingdom Grandlam is a steel wall fortress with thousands of soldiers guarding it. Within the given timeline of a month, collapse the castle, but keep in mind, they are not necessarily your enemies. During the trial, you may be able to recruit allies, find out the secret of the castle and stay alive.
So-Hyan thinks the goal is not as simple as just defeating everyone in the castle since they are not necessarily the enemies. But how will he conquer the castle in a month without fighting? At night, So-Hyan camps outside and studies the castle's layout. As expected, the walls are thick and soldiers are numerous. Many can even use mana, which makes them equal to a C-rank awakener at the least. So-Hyan is disadvantaged both in terms of numbers and intel. So-Hyan needs to uncover the mystery of the castle, but he sees no way of doing that right now. Soon, So-Hyan realizes he needs to take action, so he stops thinking and walks towards the castle gate. Guards order him to identify himself, but So-Hyan simply ignores them and jumps directly at the gates, and in a powerful single attack, he levels the gates to the ground, while the soldiers are in awe of his overwhelming power. So-Hyan then takes a moment to appreciate the craftsmanship of his new sword. Since his sword Gram is almost alive, So-Hyan easily manipulates the sword's sharpness on command. He can even make it blunt if he wishes to spare someone. With the burden of not taking the lives of the soldiers lifted from his shoulders, So-Hyan attacks with no hesitation, knocking down the soldiers, while not injuring them in the slightest. Suddenly, the archers on the castle wall start shooting arrows at So-Hyan, but he intercepts them in midair, slicing through them easily. Seeing this, everybody is surprised, but So-Hyan doesn't waste even a moment and he leaps directly in front of the commander of archers. So-Hyan pushes him off the edge, and he falls on the wooden equipment down below. Seeing this, the main commander, Commander Maxman, shows up and orders his soldiers to back off. He wants to handle So-Hyan by himself. Soldiers are touched by his sentiments, but they refuse to follow his orders and they try to drag him inside because if the commander falls, the castle will fall soon after. Seeing this, So-Hyan heads directly to Maxman, but in midair, a soldier manages to grab his ankle with a roped arrow. But So-Hyan is just too powerful. He tugs the rope in his direction, and the guy holding the rope flies towards him. but not to cause any loss of life, so Hyan catches the guy and goes on his ways, leaping on the walls like a ninja. And just as he approaches Maxman, he throws away the soldier and cuts off the rope on his ankle. So Hyan then gets ready as he winds up his sword and comes down with full force directly at Maxman, while Maxman is also prepared to parry him. Their swords clash with an incredible amount of force, so much so that all the soldiers get blown away by just the shock wave. They both then stand, facing each other with mutual respect for each other's strengths. Maxman again orders his troops to pull back and keep a look outside while he handles So Hyan. Maxman also mentions that So Hyan is not a spy from the Odram Kingdom. He seems like an unknown guy acting independently. So Hyan is impressed with Maxman's deduction skills, his judgment is spot on, and his strength is about the same as an A-rank awakener. So Hyan thinks Maxman is truly a befitting person to be a commander. The soldiers also follow Maxman's judgment and they pull back, knowing that 20 years ago, the same Maxman led them to victory in their last war with Odram Kingdom. Seeing his charisma, So Hyan correctly figures out that Maxman is some kind of a hero figure. So Hyan empathizes with Maxman because the same people who call him a hero also crush him with their hopes and expectations. It's the same as what happened to So Hyan in his previous life, so he truly understands Maxman on a different level. Seeing this, So Hyan attempts to talk, apologizing for destroying the gates, and saying he wants to discuss something urgent. Maxman silences him, saying this kingdom is in a state of war, and he can't endanger his men by letting a stranger inside. Calm and collected, So Hyan instantly figures out how to solve this problem. He runs directly at Maxman, and as their swords are in contact, So Hyan pulls out the rope he got from the arrow from before and ties Maxman's hand. So Hyan then activates the transformation skill, in which now holds an evolved form of cyclops strength. He raises his hand up in the air, realizing that the solution to seizing a castle with no bloodshed is to force the most powerful guy in charge to comply. With this, So Hyan will find the secret of this castle. He crashes his fist down at the wall and everything it hits gets destroyed. Soldiers are terrified as to what happened with their commander. They start looking around the castle since both So Hyan and Maxman just disappeared. We then move to what looks like the inside of the castle, where a black portal opens up, and coming out of it are Maxman and So Hyan. This is So Hyan's new skill called Shadow Assimilation. He got from the Floor 15 Special Items shop. This skill is used by assassin types. It may take a long time to cast, and consume a lot of mana, but it is perfect for stealth. Moving on, So Hyan realizes this place is off. It has the masked attaché's smell all over it. Quickly, So Hyan unties Maxman and asks him if he is willing to listen now. Maxman shouts, "If you came in peace, then why did you attack my soldiers?" So Hyan says he had no choice since nobody was willing to let him in or talk to him. And he couldn't wait because he is in a hurry, because in this castle problems will soon start to appear. Maxman asks, will there be an invasion by the Odram Kingdom soon? So Hyan says this war is nothing compared to what's about to come. He then asks if Maxman has seen something suspicious happened around this castle. This makes Maxman reflect on his conversation with the attaché, but he refuses to give So Hyan even a hint. So Hyan is an unknown guy. How can Maxman know if So Hyan is not an enemy spy? But So Hyan replies, why would he attack head-on if he was a spy? And if he wanted, he could conquer this whole castle all alone. And it seems like Maxman doesn't even doubt his claim. He has witnessed So Hyan's power firsthand. Maxman takes a pause and tells So Hyan to come with him. He takes So Hyan to the huge basement of the castle. This place was once a prison with a dark history. Many people lost their lives here due to the lingering energy of death. Eventually, the prison was closed down, and the prisoners were moved elsewhere. Maxman asks So Hyan to reveal the problem that is supposed to be bigger than this war. So Hyan says, you will know soon enough, as a stench of death is all over this place. It's a smell that you can't erase. When suddenly, someone comes from behind, and it's the masked attaché. He asks Commander Maxwell what on earth he is doing here in the middle of a battle. Why the hell is he here with the intruder who attacked them? So Hyan raises a question to the attaché. How did you know we were here? And your timing of coming to this exact place to find them is a little too perfect. Perhaps you were following us from behind all this time. Attaché is speechless. He ignores So Hyan and asks Maxman if he is under the control of this guy. If not, then why is he standing with the enemy? But before he could complete his sentence, So Hyan draws his sword and immediately cuts to the attaché before he could even react. And Maxman stands there astounded by what has happened. The attaché's body falls to the ground. Maxman is about to draw his sword to take revenge, when So Hyan mentions that there was never an attaché sent by the king to supervise them. And in a shocking reveal, the attaché gets up. He turns out to be a skeleton behind a mask. More specifically, he is actually a lich, radiating with undead energy, with little horns on his head and a jewel on his forehead. Just with the smell in the castle, Sohyan could tell Lich was pulling the strings here. What's more, this is not the same as the half-lich dungeon boss from before. This is actually a fully fledged lich. It's on a totally different level compared to the half one from Guangzhou. All of this confuses Maxman, so he asks if he was sent by the king, or if he was always a spy from an enemy kingdom. Meanwhile, Sohyan immediately draws his swords, understanding what's about to happen. The Lich needs to get rid of both of them, now that his real identity is exposed. The Lich fires an attack spell of dark magic, but Sohyan steps forward and dispels it with his sword. Both Maxman and Lich are shocked by this. Even Sohyan is impressed that his sword Gram has insane magic resistance, so this sword won't break like the last one. Although Sohyan's sword may be fine, he has no means of actually dealing any real damage to the Lich. Since it's a darkness-type monster, the Lich can only get damage from someone with a holy attribute. And since there is no way to do any real damage, all Sohyan can do right now is try to suppress it with his flames. Activating his flaming sword, Sohyan jumps in the air and launches a powerful attack. But the Lich easily dodges by flying up in the air. Sohyan then launches the long-range flame attack, but the Lich intercepts it midway with his own magic, and the attacks cancel out each other. Sohyan is shocked. This Lich is much stronger than he thought. He can keep the Lich busy for now, but without a holy attribute he will only be exhausting his mana to buy time. What's more, a long drawn-out battle of mana is a really bad idea against a Lich. Sohyan uses his only option and starts going directly for the jewel in the Lich's forehead. The Lich easily dodges Sohyan's attack, but Sohyan stabilizes himself on a wall and starts throwing long-range flame attacks. But that too is useless. The Lich counterattacks with his own spell, but using the dust from the blast as a smoke screen, Sohyan disappears and sneaks up from behind, successfully landing a blow. And as the Lich comes plummeting to the ground, Sohyan runs to the Lich's blind spot and moves into attack. As he gets closer, suddenly, the Lich exudes an immense amount of dark energy from his back. This was a trick to lure Sohyan. The Lich purposely got hit to bait Sohyan, but Sohyan's quick reflexes saved him this time. They exchange a few more blows when the Lich finally proclaims, "Playtime is over." And immediately, a darkness emerges from behind the cell, and it aims directly at Maxman. But Sohyan saves him just in time. A Lich shouldn't be able to manipulate darkness from this far away. But then the realization hits Sohyan. This place is filled with the energy of the dead. It is a cursed place as it is filled with darkness, death, and echoes of suffering prisoners. This place is a haven for a Lich. Suddenly a voice comes from the dark cell behind them, commending Sohyan for noticing all that. Shockingly, it seems like a portal has opened, and 2 more Liches have shown up from the cell. Now Maxman and Sohyan will be facing 3 full Liches in total. This battle has turned from an impossible situation to an even more impossible situation for our 2 heroes. The Red Lich says to the other Lich, "You have already dragged this for too long. Stop playing around and end these small fries." While the Black Lich timidly says, "You should have easily killed them from behind when they were coming down the stairs." Seeing that Maxman has no idea what's going on, Sohyan explains the situation. Turns out, there is an entity known as the Lich King. He is also the king of the dead realm. And one way to summon the Lich King is with a grand ritual with tons of human sacrifice. And for that, this castle is perfect for them, with thousands of soldiers confined to a very limited area. Red and Black Liches are pretty impressed with Sohyan's knowledge, while the purple one confirms that it's true. Some time ago the 3 Liches found this castle to be perfect for their plans, so they went ahead and killed the king who ruled this castle. They then controlled the king's corpse with their death magic to make themselves in charge of this castle. Hearing all this angers Maxman to no bounds, but Sohyan stops him from acting rashly, while the Lich continues revealing their evil plans. For the ritual they needed to build the altar of sacrifice, and making the altar should have taken them at least 1 more month. But they managed to complete it sooner than expected. And as soon as they get rid of Sohyan and Maxman, they will begin with the summoning ritual for the Lich King. As Sohyan is assessing how to handle the situation, the Lich casts a spell, and weird lines start appearing around the heroes. When the realization comes to Sohyan that this is the Dark Guidance skill, a skill that is only accessible to the Liches of the highest rank, this spell controls even the laws of physics and crumbles the space itself. Seeing this, Sohyan figures these Liches are of a special class. They are called Apostle class Liches, and they are too overpowered. As the Liches walk away, they bid the heroes the last farewell. They are helpless, even Sohyan can do nothing against this spell, and they are about to die. When unexpectedly, the spell suddenly breaks apart. Turns out Maxman has easily broken it. The Liches bicker among themselves, saying this Maxman guy must have a holy sword or something. But Maxman corrects them, that his sword is not holy. Instead, Maxman himself actually happens to be a holy knight. Since a holy knight is quite a troublesome opponent for a Lich, the Red Lich steps forward to get rid of him immediately, while Purple One orders the Black Lich to use the undead and make sure that not even a single human escapes from the castle. Maxman runs towards the Purple Lich to attack him, but suddenly the Red Lich appears above him, and throws a powerful dark magic arrow directly at Maxman. But just in time, Sohyan calls upon his divine phoenix, and the phoenix catches the arrow with its beak and dispels it. The Red Lich gets surprised by the power of Sohyan's familiar. He is unable to handle it. But shortly after that, the phoenix turns its attention to the Black Lich and he runs as the bird chases him all the way, keeping both Liches busy. Meanwhile, Maxman is hurting. He has failed his king. But Sohyan reaches out and tells him that together we can get out of this situation. He adds, "I know you are the commander, but will you let me lead you in this battle, just this once?" While the Phoenix is keeping the Liches at bay, Sohyan tells Maxman about some kind of a secret plan. But after hearing it, Maxman is having a hard time leaving Sohyan to handle the Liches all alone. They are just too powerful, especially since this place is haven for them to fight. But Sohyan reminds him of their plan. He asks Maxman about what he values more, the castle or the lives of his soldiers. Hearing this, Maxman runs to his soldiers, while Sohyan ponders about the advice the gatekeeper gave him, which was doing what you have to do. Sohyan leaps in the air and launches an attack with his whole might. But what's this? The Lich stands completely fine. They wonder what Sohyan just did. And in anime style, just when Sohyan finally sheaths his blade, a huge cut appears on a castle wall, and the whole wall collapses. Liches are baffled by this action of Sohyan, but that's just the beginning. More cracks appear, and eventually the whole building gets leveled to the ground. The Liches are unhurt thanks to their teleportation. But the Purple Lich is absolutely furious with Sohyan's actions. He orders the Black Lich to immediately start summoning the undead. But when he turns to the Red Lich to give him an order, the Phoenix launches an attack on the Red Lich. And just as the Red Lich manages to dodge the Phoenix's attack, Sohyan comes from behind and cuts the Red Lich in half along with its stone. One Lich down, 2 more to go. Purple is absolutely furious at losing his comrade. How did Sohyan manage to execute the Lich so easily? To take revenge, the Purple Lich moves like black lightning and attacks Sohyan. Sohyan manages to parry it, but as Sohyan is in mid-air unable to change directions, Purple Lich activates his trump card, the Dark Guidance skill, at the perfect time. The spell is complete, but just in time Sohyan calls upon the Phoenix, and it successfully manages to destroy the spell. Sohyan has survived, but he is totally exhausted, and the Lich easily notices this. The Lich says that he is well aware that the Phoenix summoning is eating away at Sohyan's mana like crazy, so he offers the cliché villain line. He says that if Sohyan gives up now, he might even give him a painless death. Hearing this, Sohyan smiles. He confirms that it's in fact true that it's about time that he runs out of mana, but now he can defeat the Lich with just his sword. In a 9000 IQ move, it's revealed that earlier Sohyan had actually used his transformation skill on his ally instead of some boss monster. Using the skill, he copied the divine attribute from Maxman and obtained the Holy Blade. The real fight has just begun. Meanwhile, the Black Lich is floating just above soldiers' heads. He then activates a wide-range spell, and from beneath the ground, corpses begin to emerge. The soldiers are terrified. Soldiers manage to avoid them, but the summoned undead monster starts climbing the wall, where Maxman has just reunited with his soldiers. His soldiers are happy he is back, and they say they would never let their commander fight alone like last time, and they prepare to fight the undead monster coming their way. Meanwhile, the battle between Purple Lich and Sohyan is getting more intense by the minute. They are clashing like superhumans across the battlefield with incredible speed. Luckily, now that Sohyan is equipped with holy attributes, the Lich is actually on the back foot now. After doing some maneuvering, Sohyan manages to catch him off guard and he lands a powerful hit on the Lich's skull. The Lich crashes down. He is hurt, his whole face cracked, but his arrogance has gone nowhere. He thinks, how can he, the great mighty Lich, the leader among even the apostle-class Liches, is about to be defeated by a mere human? Sohyan doesn't give him a single second to try something and he immediately launches another attack, finally managing to cut through the crystal on its forehead. But for some reason, the Lich still holds on to his life, even without the crystal. So Hyan thinks that this Lich is really something else. So Hyan tells him to stop wasting time and just disappear already, but the Lich replies, "It's actually you who is the one wasting time with his futile resistance. Your demise is inevitable, as countless apostle-class Liches are working day and night to revive the Lich King. And when their king comes to this world, you won't be able to put a scratch on him, even if you have 10 lives." So Hyan sighs and walks towards the Lich, and he deals a finishing blow saying that it doesn't matter even if you revive him, your king will die by my hands anyway. These are just not empty words. In So Hyan's past life as Kim Sung, the Lich King did show up in an outbreak near the end of the world. And as the hero of his time, our main character was the one who defeated the Lich King, but only after a massive battle that took countless lives. Meanwhile, Maxman and his soldiers are fighting the Black Lich and his undead minions. The Lich mocks Maxman for his futile attacks, taunting him for his inability to reach him. However, the Lich's demeanor suddenly changes as he senses something amiss. He realizes that the Purple Lich has been slain. The news shatters him, causing him to scream in agony. Lost in his anguish, the Lich repeatedly utters the words, "My friend was killed. My boss was killed." As his mind unravels, consumed by emotion, the Lich lets out a scream that triggers a wide area spell, engulfing the entire castle. The soldiers begin to suffocate, and Maxman stands helplessly, unable to save them. With astonishing speed, So Hyan swiftly moves past them, charging straight at the Lich before its spell does any more damage. So Hyan delivers a powerful punch to the Lich's face, and the Lich comes crashing down on the ground. As a result, the spell dissipates, and the soldiers regain their breath. So Hyan reveals that this Lich was using the key absorption technique, and if this wasn't stopped immediately, the spell would have become stronger and stronger as more people died, feeding the spell, eventually making it impossible to stop. Lich gets up, still saying he will avenge his friend's death. Suddenly a staff comes out the Lich's mouth. This Lich is definitely not done yet with his revenge. Using the staff he reactivates the key absorption technique from before, but when So Hyan comes to stop him this time, he is faced with an invisible barrier that he is unable to power through. So Hyan is worried the soldiers will start dying soon, and the technique will get progressively stronger and more difficult to stop. When out of nowhere, Maxman tells So Hyan not to worry. It's his job to protect his soldiers, while So Hyan should only focus on the Lich. Maxman then stabs the sword into the ground and a blue barrier begins to envelop the whole castle. The effects of the Lich's spell have disappeared, and the soldiers are good again. This is Maxman's greatest skill, only used by the Holy Knights, a barrier that protects against all dark magic effects, but it comes at a steep cost of the Holy Knight's lifespan. And the fight continues once again. So Hyan sees all the soldiers giving their best against the undead. It's all up to him to get rid of this final Lich. Seeing the spell fail, the Lich gets aggressive, and he manages to land a hit on So Hyan, saying how can you mere little bugs that were supposed to be used only as sacrifices dared to kill his Lich friends. Hearing this, So Hyan gets angry, and he grabs the Lich's staff and sets him on fire. So Hyan tells the Lich to remember the feeling of losing someone while you burn in these flames. How dare a monster that was about to kill thousands of men dare to talk about loss? He has no sympathy for a monster that was perfectly fine with snatching a husband, a brother, or a son from countless other people. So Hyan then finally deals the finishing blow to the Lich, and moments later the monsters it summoned also start to disappear as well. Seeing they have finally succeeded, Maxman lies down to take a breath, and So Hyan also sits down to finally rest as his job here is done. And we will end it here for now. Please drop a like and subscribe. I really get motivated to work hard with support from you guys. Suggest me any other series that would be good to cover in parallel to this one. I am here to make what you guys want.